Hey guys, I'm Jacinta Robinson and welcome to the Fearless podcast, where I interview incredible athletes or specialists in the area of health. Today's guest has won a total of 7 world champion medals. At the age of 15, he was the youngest member of the Australian team at the London 2012 Paralympic Games, where he won a bronze and silver medal in the 100 and 200 meter T34 events. In 2017, at the Swiss International Championships, he set a new world record in the men's 100 meter T34 with a time of 14.92 seconds. Last year, he won a silver medal in the men's 100 meter in Dubai at the World Para Athletics Championships. I'd like to welcome Rheed McCracken. Well, welcome to the podcast, Rheed. I'm so excited to have you on board. I know it's a bit crazy at the moment, but we're doing it over Zoom. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I know it's a whole different world. I've seen a lot of, I've done a lot of Zoom things at the moment, and it's just trying to get my head around it. I wouldn't say I'm the best on Zoom, but we'll have a go.
Yeah. No, it's very convenient. I know that's for sure. Yeah. Now, you're from Bundaberg, and I don't know if you know, but I'm from Bundaberg. And I was like, when I was reading a little bit about you, I was like, holy hell, we used to train at the same athletics ground.
Really?
Yes! Yes!
Oh my God, it's such a small world. Wait, what part of Bundaberg, where did you live in Bundaberg?
The west side of Bundy.
West side of Bundaberg. You know, people are going to be sitting there going, Bundaberg's such a small town. Isn't it just Bundaberg? You just live in Bundaberg, it's just one street. That's so funny because, I noticed that you had a few mutual connections to people that I knew from when I was living in Bundaberg, and I saw and I thought, oh, that's so interesting. I wonder how you knew those people, but that makes total sense now.
Yeah. Insane, so hey? So, like, you've obviously come a long way. Whereabouts are you living now?
Yeah, I'm in Newcastle now. I've been here for 6 or 7 years now, I think it is. Something like that. I moved here to be with my coach, and at the time when I moved here, Kurt Fearnley, who's one of our great Paralympians, was still training and still competing. So I had a chance to work alongside him for a couple of years, and have been working with Andrew Dawes now for 10 years now. So he just kind of, I just needed to be here to get that full intensity of training. Sometimes you kind of miss out a little bit on that when you're trying to train via distance. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, and I do love, I must say, speaking of Bundaberg, because Bundaberg is always going to be my home. My family is still there. I love Bundaberg. I love going back home. Newcastle's got a similar vibe to it, where it's got a little bit like it's got the beach. It's a little bit country town, but you still got a little bit more than just a pub on the corner. So I do love it here. But yeah, Bundaberg will still always be my home.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say that I'd ever want to go back to Bundy. Like, I do like it, but I'm much...
Oh, you wouldn't want to go back. Oh, no.
So let's take the listeners back to the very start when you were young. Can you tell us a little bit about when you were born and what your parents had experienced with you growing up?
Okay. Yeah, well, I was born in Bundaberg. My mum and dad, Brad and Sam McCracken, I was their second child, born with cerebral palsy, and I was diagnosed with my disability when I was 14 months. So for them, it was a little bit of a different experience because that was their first child that they've had with a disability, and it's one of those things where for me, I don't have kids, so I'm not too sure how hard it is to raise a newborn, but when you've got your newborn is different to how other people are. But I must say that...
What is cerebral palsy? Just for everybody listening that may not know.
Yeah, so cerebral palsy is it can be. Cerebral palsy is it's one of the biggest. The way it affects different parts of your body, you can be, hemiplegia, diplegia. So that, that means you can be affected from just your waist down. You could be affected one side of your body. It can affect all your limbs. It's so spread out. For me, I'm diplegia, so just both legs. And they do say that there is a little bit that you do have in your hands, but for me it's very mild. So for me, going fast forwarding obviously to when I ended up doing wheelchair racing, it was perfect for that. But cerebral palsy is something that can affect in so many different ways. It tightens the muscles, the tone of the muscles. Can cause spasms, can be painful in some people, if depending on stretches and how you treat it. If you are someone who stretches out those muscles to try and loosen them up a little bit, it's just a muscle tightness.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my parents, that was a learning curve. They had to find, they got me into the cerebral palsy league, which is I'm pretty sure the cerebral palsy league is still running to this day. But yeah, they just had to find ways to try and help their young kid out who but for me, I didn't affect, I didn't even notice it, to be honest. I grew up just doing any and everything, so it didn't bother me too much.
Yeah. And then how did you go? So then, like, obviously you'd been diagnosed, whatever, and then you went from that into, because you said, like, what'd you say, 15 months? Did you go into a wheelchair, like, when you could start to kind of crawl a little bit more, or what's the process? How does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't really have we didn't have any signs early on. It wasn't until I started to, the crawling stage, and when you'd start to get up and walk, when I don't know, as I said, I don't have kids, so I'm not too sure about the transition, but I just know that for myself, when I was, my parents started to notice that I wasn't progressing any further, is when we started to sort of see someone about, why this was. I used to sit in a W position. So if you can imagine, you're sitting on your butt and you've got your legs out in front, but your legs are turned. So you actually sit in the W position, and it was the comfiest position for me to sit in as a kid, but really quite bad. They noticed things like that. So they kind of picked up that there might have been something going on. And obviously the fact that I hadn't got up to walk yet. I wasn't wheelchair bound or anything like that. I didn't start using a wheelchair until I was 13 years old. I used, we went through procedures, and I had surgeries and Botox when I was younger to try and just prolong the chair use. We always knew that was going to be an option because it was going to be less pain on my joints, less pain in my knees and that kind of stuff. So we just prolonged that as much as we could. But I walked up until I was 13.
Yeah. And when you say like Botox, do you mean like that's injected into the muscle to relax it so that you didn't feel?
Yeah. So they use Botox. So very different to what you put into your face, into your crow's feet or whatever. I'm not too sure. Sometimes, my mum always jokes about when I was a little bit of a guinea pig when I was younger, because Botox was relatively new in how they were using it, and how they were using it into the muscle of cerebral palsy patients to try and relax the muscle, just to see if it would take some of the tone out, see if it would help alleviate some of the tightness in hamstrings, calf muscles and stuff like that. So I was a little bit of a guinea pig in that sense, but my mum always used to joke that she'd like a few, just because I had a great doctor, Paul Pincus, my orthopedic surgeon, who I still have contact with now. He was fantastic. Like, for my parents, I think that was probably the best thing. Like, these things are scary for parents who don't understand the situation. They don't know what they're putting their kid through. They don't know if they're putting their kid through the right path. Is this the right thing to do? We did gait testing where they'd put all these little tags on me all over my body, and I'd have to walk up and down, in my underwear when I was, I was probably 4 or 5. And they'd do all these tests on me just to get a bit of an idea, not just for myself, but for the future of cerebral palsy, that they might have an idea of how they can best combat this in young kids. And I think, I think my parents did an amazing job as just trusting the people that were around them to give them the ideas. But also, when I say about Paul Pincus and what he did for me, he was also the person who then said to my parents that you can't wrap him in cotton wool. Like, he's going to do what he wants to do. If he wants to walk, he wants to walk. If he wants to use a chair, we can prolong that. But you just have to let him, he's fine. He's just a kid. And that's pretty much how I was raised from then on.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's incredible. And so then you would have got the chair, and then how did you feel? Like, you would have been relieved of the pain on your legs, right?
When I started using a chair later in life?
Yeah.
Or early on?
Like when you were 13, so you got your wheelchair, and then all of a sudden you would have been like, oh my God, my upper body.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It was so hard to get used to. And the blisters on your hands, just those kinds of things, like those small things that you don't take into consideration until you're a lot into, now I don't notice when, I do notice when I have a cut on my hand and I have to push in my chair and I'm like, oh damn, that's in the worst spot.
Yeah.
But when I was, I had my final surgery when I was 12. I had a bifemoral osteotomy, which is, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. So they actually, for the listeners who aren't sure, I'll explain it without being too graphical or anything. But so they cut your femur, so the top bones, and they twist it, and so it straightens your legs out. And then they plate and screw it, and then you have that in for 12 months. And after 12 months, you go back in and they take those out. And it essentially just turns your feet from in to out. So that was my last surgery I had when I was 12. And from then on, I started using a chair. That was kind of my transition into a chair from there. And it made it easy because when you have both your femurs cut, twisted, broken, and screwed back up, wheelchair is your only option. So so it made that transition really easy for me. And then from that moment on, my life kind of exploded a little bit from there. So I was all good.
Yeah. So then tell us, how did you go from that moment to then all of a sudden racing? Like, what was the link? What happened?
It's crazy. It's such a, I look at it now, and there's times when I wish that I could go back to that moment and just experience it again, because it all happened so fast. And as I said, I wish I could go back. So it wasn't that long after I had that surgery that I just spoke to you about, and I was in recovery phase, and I'd always wanted to do this wheelchair racing, which at the time I didn't know much about. I'd seen it on TV, watching the Beijing Games. I'd seen people like Kurt Fearnley and those kinds of people going around the track, and I thought that's something that I would love to do. And I didn't know if I could do it or not, because at this stage, Paralympics is, for a young kid, Paralympics can be quite difficult to get into. You don't know the pathways, and I didn't really know the pathway to get into it. But I knew that I wanted to do that. So I was doing these junior development camps in Queensland, where mum and dad would just send me to the Sunshine Coast or the Gold Coast or wherever, and for over the weekend they'd teach you how to eat better, and what athletes did to perform better, and all these kinds of things. And it was a great stepping stone for me. But it wasn't until I was flying home from one of these events that I sat next to David Kochi from Sunrise. Yeah. And Kochi, and again, keep in mind, this wasn't long after my surgery, so I was still pretty raw and fresh into it. And I met Kochi, and I told him that I wanted to meet Kurt Fearnley, and he took me to Sydney to race the Balmoral Burn, which is, if anyone, I don't know if any, like, if your listeners are around the Balmoral area in Sydney, like, but Awaba Street in Sydney is just 420 meters straight up. It is the hardest 420 meters of your life. And that was my first race. That was my first taste of it. And yes, but in that, you know, I got my own chair. So I got fitted up, and we bought a chair from, you know, the great community of Bundaberg fundraised for me to have my chair. And my first day taking that race chair out, I actually crashed it. And because I was so fresh from my surgery, I know, so I'd had the plates and screws removed from my legs, and I just could not wait to get into this race chair. Yeah. And took it straight down the road, crashed it, opened all the stitches back up. So yeah, it was just a horrible experience. But yeah, that was basically my introduction into wheelchair racing. Not the crashing and the busting the stitches open, the fact that David Kochi took the time to introduce me to Kurt and flew me and my family to Sydney. And
what did he see in you? Like, what was the thing that he saw in you to want to be able to do that for you? Have you ever asked him?
You know, I've never asked him. Sometimes when I sit and have, like, David's just been so, you know, he's been so influential in my life and such a big part of it. There's been times when, you know, I've been able to go to Sydney and just catch up with him for coffee and just, I don't know what he saw in me. I've never asked him. I don't know. I sat next to him on a plane, and, you know, he didn't have to do that for anyone. Like, he didn't have to fly myself and my family to Sydney to meet Kurt. Like, he knew Kurt, and they could have, and it all could have just been what it was. Like, he didn't have to do that, but he did, and I've never asked him why. And I think that, like, for me, I think that, and it sounds really corny, but, you know, I think that I was meant to do what I do. I love what I do, and, you know, I picked up the sport quite not easily, because it's hard, but I got, you know, my transition into the sport was, you know, I had a great coach around me, but it was quite quickly between that and then, you know, I was only 15 when I competed in London at the Paralympics in 2012. So yeah, and I was only 30. So I don't, you know, 2 years into the sport, and I'd already been able to achieve that milestone.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he saw in me, and I've never asked him. I'd be too scared to ask him.
He saw potential. He saw that you had potential by the sounds of it.
Yeah, maybe. And the fact that, you know, I was, you know, and I think about it a lot at the, you know, when I look back on it now, that time was a bit of a, could have gone either way for me. I was doing these junior development camps that were, as I said, great stepping stones, but it was starting to get a bit stale, where I kind of needed to find a pathway into something. And I just didn't know how to do that. I was too young, and I didn't know how to find the right way to get seen, to get recognized, and to sort of have someone say, hey, look, we think you might be able to not necessarily make London, but make Rio, and we just need to, you know, if we can get you here, we can get you training full time. I just needed that, but I didn't. I was at a bit of a crossroads at that point.
Yeah.
So I think I'm very blessed that he saw me at that time, and yeah, it was all very lucky. I think about it all. Like, I think about it all the time. Like, everything I've been able to do in my life, I look back to that moment, and it's like, yeah, there's parts where, like, you can't just say it's just luck, like, because I think I worked really hard to get everything, but there is an element of that, you know, there's a chance that I may have not have been doing racing it where I am now, and have been able to do some of the events so early on that I did.
Yeah. I think life has a beautiful way of bringing you into the direction of your purpose. So it was clear that this is where you're meant to be. So I feel like it's an incredible synchronicity that you were on the same plane as him, and he knew your idol, which is like, it's perfect, right? So it was meant to be, regardless of
Yeah.
how it happened.
And it was very coincidental in the fact that Kurt was just crawling Kokoda at the time. Well, he had just crawled Kokoda, and they had a bet on at that time that Kochi thought that Kurt couldn't crawl Kokoda within a certain time, and Kurt ended up doing it. And
Oh, wow.
so in that bet, Kurt's bet was that you have to do the Balmoral burn. And Sunrise were flying to Bundaberg for what your town's famous for. And I just happened to be on the same flight. So all these things linked up that they were already having their connection with their bet to do this. And I just joined in on it, basically.
Yeah. And then when you met Kurt, what was that experience like?
It was, you know what? I honestly don't remember. Like, I remember just being in awe, just being so put back by it all. I remember I've got photos of the moment, like, that we first met, and the things that I used to have this really long black hair. I was in my feelings at the time, and long black hair. And I had this full Queensland tracksuit on, this full get up, and these photos of him that just me and him together the first time I met, and they just do the rounds. Like, we'll be, the game's coming up, obviously, so Sunrise have those photos, so they'll like start showing them again, and I cannot get away from that moment of my life. And I just sit there, and my mum always says, I wish you had got a haircut before that. I wish you just got a haircut before that. Would have been so good. Yeah. I said, and at the time I was like, I'm not having any haircuts, Mum. And I said, but I look at it now and I'm like, damn, I should have had a haircut.
So the moral of the story.
Moral of the story is, if your mum tells you to get a haircut, you probably need a haircut.
Oh, how funny.
I don't remember. I just remember being, he just crawled Kokoda, and it was just, he was all over the news. He had other things going on in his life at the same time, but it was just massive moment. It'd be interesting to ask him what he remembers of it, because he probably was like, I didn't care about you. No, I'm just kidding.
He probably was like, oh, this guy's a fan, like, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, and it's so funny when I look at it now about how our lives changed. My life changed from that, and I became, like, Kurt is one of my best friends, and it's so strange, especially in the moment, being that we got some isolation issues and stuff like that. But I look at Kurt as being my biggest family, and my family in Newcastle. I live here alone, and I always go over there for dinner, and they're always so welcoming, and I trained with him for years, but yeah, he's my family here, and I'd be really lost without him. I don't know. He's just helped me through really tough times that I've had here, especially like when he retired, and it went from, I was just training with my coach on my own, but we used to have a bit of a group, and that changed. And that little change kind of threw me a little bit, but just still having him there has been, it's been a bit of a blessing in disguise, really.
Yeah, sounds beautiful. So you moved down there, right? So you moved down and that's where you started training full on for everything. Is that correct? To Newcastle?
Yeah. So before London in 2012, I was still very young. I was only year 10 at school. Mm-hmm. So I'd always had the plan to move to Newcastle after I'd finished school, just on the fact that Andrew Dawes, my coach, was very, if you want to continue and you want to be bigger and stronger and better for Rio and further down the track, you need to be here. We need to be training full time together. And that was something that from year 10, I knew I was going to do, and I'd already kind of made steps to do that. I couch surfed a little bit between his house and Kurt's house until I found my own place. But the idea was that.
What was the difference in the training though? So now you're in the situation, you're there. What would you say is the biggest difference with your training?
Between when I was just in Bundaberg and here,
Yeah.
the fact that it's the extra 1%ers. Because you can do all the sessions you want on your own as hard as you can, but your coach being there finds that extra 1%. It's that extra little bit that pushes you just a little bit further, just over the edge to what you would have done if you were just on your own. Because it's very easy for your mind to go, well, I've done what the piece of paper has told me to do. I just need to, and I'm done now.
Yeah.
But your coach finds that little extra edge, and that's what makes you better each week and each block and each session and each year makes you stronger. Is those 1%ers, they all add up, and that was the difference for me. I probably would have, if I stayed in Bundaberg, lost a lot of those. I probably wouldn't have done those. I think you have to be strong mentally in yourself to want to do these things, but sometimes it is easier to be lazy, and you can be a little bit lazy. So having him there, and I know in myself, like even if he goes away for a week, that I start, I notice those where I just miss him in those little extra efforts when I'm starting to get a little bit fatigued and a little bit down, where I just miss him just sort of grinding that little bit extra out of you.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of having a coach, is because they can see your potential when you can't. And like you said, they're just going to push your threshold that little bit more. And that 1% over a long time, it is dramatic difference in your performance. And I think you're absolutely correct.
Well, it's everything, really. It's what, you think about those 1%ers all throughout the week, and then that training block. By the time you get to the event that you're training for, whether it be a Paralympics or a World Championships or just trials or whatever it is, all those 1%ers have all added up then, and you've just got that little extra bit that is needed. And that's what I think the difference between, if I had stayed in Bundaberg to moving to Newcastle, I would have missed out on a lot of those. And don't get me wrong, it was super hard to leave Bundaberg. I left my family behind when I was just 17, and I just it's in your mind whether you made the right decision or not, but you have to make it the right decision by then putting in all the effort and putting in all the work, and those sessions that you kind of are a bit just not there, you're not feeling, you think about those moments what kind of get you through them.
Yeah. And then going into the competitions, the tough times, how do you train yourself mentally to be prepared? Like you're leading up, you're traveling to a different country, and you've done that numerous times. Like how are you preparing yourself mentally to be at your A game? Like is everybody there, like your coach and everyone there, or are you by yourself or?
Yeah. So everyone usually we travel in a team, and quite a big team if it's a Paralympics or a World Championships. But we race in Switzerland every year. I put Switzerland down as usually being some of my best racing. That's usually where I've been fortunate enough to do records, like world records and stuff like that there. And that's my sweet spot, where I really, that's the race usually just before the major event that we get to do. But it's just it is hard, because it took me a long time to realize how important the mental side was. I kind of neglected that a little bit, and I'm still playing catch up to it now, because when I was 15 and in London, I used to just think that this was going to be it was never going to end. This was just the easiest thing. And there was, you didn't need to, all you need to do is just train hard, turn up and race, and everything will just fall into place.
Yeah.
And then as the racing gets faster and people get better and people get stronger, you're starting to getting pipped at the line by 100th of a second. The mental side plays such a big thing in it. But I have a great sports psych who I've just started working with. This is our second year of me working with her, and I think she's been the best thing for me, honestly, just in the fact that, yeah, like I said, I neglected it too much.
So what are some things that you went through? Like, people listening to that are like, oh yeah, cool, I understand that. But like, unless you, like, can you elaborate a little bit more on some experience that you've had? Because unless you've actually been in the moment, you don't know that you're neglecting it, right?
Yeah. So in 2015 at the World Championships, I didn't win a medal there. That was the first year that I wasn't able to get onto the podium. I did 4 events, and I left there with Rio just around the corner. So I left there going, it's okay. We've got Rio. I've got a chance to make it up. And so I neglected the fact that the performances there weren't that good. I was a bit off, and I just pushed that to the side. And then Rio came around, and I had a good couple of races, but I let it go, being that, I had a bad year last year, so this year's better. So it doesn't matter if it was a gold, silver, or bronze. It was just a better result than last year. But 2017 World Championships rolled around, and I was in what I believe to be the best form that I've ever been in. I broke the world record in Switzerland earlier that year. Twice. I think I did it twice in over 2 days, and I just was really, really ready to go. Well, I thought I was really ready to go, and I got to the start line of the 100 meters, and I remember it clear as day, lining up, and there's 8 people in the final that can win that race, and I remember sitting on the start line, and in my head just going, I don't want to be here. Like, I didn't want to be there. Oh. Any day but today. I just did not want to do it. I wanted to put my hand up and just go into a corner and cry. Like, and that was a build up of the 2015, 2016, and we got to 2017, and the outside pressure of people being like, well, this is your year. You were close last year, I think neglecting those years kind of is what got me to the point of just basically just breaking point, really, where I just, I felt like I could have won that race, and I was probably fit enough to win that race. My headspace wasn't right. And that was kind of where that was. And as I said, I've worked with Fiona now for 2 years, and I'm still playing catch up a little bit, and we're still working on it. But I just noticed the difference between 2019 World Championships. I won a silver in the 100 meters there. The difference between the silver that I won in 2017 and that year was just different. Like, even though I went in as fit, just having a healthy mind makes the result much sweeter and much better.
Yeah. And what does Fiona do with you? Does she get you to see, do you have like some, like visualization prior to the race, or like what's involved? Like, do you guys do some activities, or did you go through the events that you did, and when you felt not so great, you dissected that and seen the beauty of that? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, early on it was the first few sessions was me just getting rid of built up emotion and tension more than anything. But once we got through that, just these tricks to be able to get to the start line and kind of clear your mind out. She's great at being able to pick out, like you said, like those moments when in Switzerland, like when you win there and you break a world record, what was your process before that? Why was that event there so much better than how you feel when you get to World Championships? Is it the outside, the added pressure? Is it the warm up? Is it all these kinds of things? And we worked together to be able to build this process from an event like Switzerland, where I was able to win and get a world record, and build this process that we were able to take all the way into the World Championships in 2019. And we were still tweaking it. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. We were still trying to find she calls it a recipe. We were still trying to find the right recipe.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have been able to have it fully ready to go for this year, but it wasn't to be. So we've kind of gone, it's a good and bad thing. It gives us a little extra time, but at the same time, we're trialing things now without actually being able to do the racing. But yeah, it's just those little things like, telling yourself things when you're strapping up your gloves. So you strap one glove up and you say something to yourself, a little code word that is kind of like, that's one half of it. Strap the other glove up, and that's it. And then that's your mindset that everything else is wiped out from that moment that glove is done up. Just things like that.
Yeah.
She's been really good in finding and being able to break down everything for me. And as I said, I think mental well-being is the biggest thing. You can be as fit and as strong as you want, but if you're not mentally strong to be there, you might as well forget about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you start your fitness journey, whatever it is, you get into the movement, and then you're like, oh, I want to be healthy, and then you start being healthy, and then you can get so far with that, but then it's like, wow, what the hell is going up here? And why? How do I propel that forward? And so I think that's really fascinating. I'm obsessed with the mind and trying to understand how does an athlete perform, and how are they getting to the places that they are at compared to someone who's just trying to go out and run 5K, or I don't know, do a push-up or something like that. It's about how to dissect all those little voices in your head and go, okay, we're here to do this thing now.
But it's so neglected. Like it can be something that can be really neglected. I think that sometimes we forget about it. For personal experience, I forgot. I thought that it was, everything I was doing was fine. I was eating right, I was training right, but upstairs I wasn't quite. I wasn't being able to put it together. I wasn't focusing on the right things. I was turning up to the track in a different mindset to what I needed to be at, and there's a lot of external things that do add to that. Like you might turn, the fact that you turn up to an event like, say, Switzerland, the Swiss Nationals, where it's not life or death, and not that Paralympics or World Championships are life or death, but you turn up there and it's like, this one doesn't mean, if I win this or come second in this, all it is we're just trying to get the time, we're trying to get the qualifier, we're just trying to see where everyone else is in the field, compared to the different mentality that I was taking into a World Championships and Paralympics. And I honestly was taking the mentality of, this is life or death. Like, this is it. This is like, am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to be able to do this? All those things that I was putting into something that you should just be doing because you enjoy doing it, and forget about all that external stuff. So we had to break that down and really extract those out of the process, because they are very detrimental to your competition.
Yeah. And I agree with lots of things in life. And I think you can't see what's going on until something puts like a little warning sign, or someone else's they've got a better mindset, and you're like, oh, how are they doing it? So it makes you question it.
Absolutely. And especially, for me, the athlete that is one of my biggest competitors, he has won all those gold medals to all those silvers that I have. I was getting into the mindset of, am I settling for second? Like, am I ever going to be able to beat him? Like, why can he do it and I can't? And there was there'd be times where, I think the conditions would favor me better. It might be raining, or, he's from Tunisia, so they don't get much rain. And, I'd sit there and go, all right, this is better for me, but why can he still do that better than I can? And I just, it's just, it's about trying to break it down and tweak it and learn what the
beauty of it is.
Yeah, and I didn't know much about that until I went and saw Fiona, to be honest. She really opened that up to me a little bit more.
So how do you find what's going on with the whole corona thing, because obviously the Olympics is put off. So how does that go for your mindset when you've been preparing for something for quite some time?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the history of it has had to do a 5-year build up. I don't know. I'd have to have a look back through history, but it's been a 5-year build up for these games, and it will be a 5-year build up. Yeah, it changes everything. Changes everything because you're so ready to go this year. It's been one of the most draining things I think I've been through. I've tried to look at the positives out of it. Like I said, we have more time to do certain things. I wish the games this year, there's definitely other things going on in the world that are so much more important though. But yeah, it's been really hard. It's been,
But how do you like I want to know, like when you go to train, right? Like,
yeah.
like with training for an event or anything, you go through a training series and then you peak and then you come back down. Like, how do you, like, you're mentally, it's like 12 weeks away, or that it's a certain period away. How do you wrap your head around, okay, I'm training for a goal that I can't determine the end date for? Have you thought about it like that?
Yeah, I have thought about it like that. And and the fact that it's not even 100% locked in. That's the other thing to it. If you know that it's 100% going to happen, it's a little bit easier because you just reset the year and you start to, and especially if there was racing still going on, you would just reset the year. But we don't have any of that. So yeah, you are turning up to training and you kind of, those 1%ers we were talking about, you kind of lose those a little bit, just in the sense that you still want to be fit and you still want to be strong and you still want to be healthy, but you probably don't need to push your body just to that point yet. And also it's like the middle of winter now, so it's even harder to get up and go outside because Newcastle, it was like 9 degrees in Newcastle this morning or something like that, so it was freezing. And trying to push yourself into that when there's something that you don't even know what the outcome's going to be like until March next year or something like that. So it's going to be really interesting. It's tough though. It is hard. And I think that, I wish I wasn't part of the, I wish, when you look back on history and you see, remember that time that COVID hit and all those athletes had to do a 5-year build up, and it was the strangest thing that they've ever had to do. I wish I wasn't part of that. I wish I didn't, but I am, I still want to remain focused. And if the games go ahead next year, I want to be there and I want to be as fit and as strong, and it'll be my 3rd games. And I'm hoping that 3rd time is a charm for me.
And it might mentally prepare you in a way that you're not, that you didn't realize. And you probably weren't ready for. So this might be the very thing that helps get you conditioned for that race.
Yeah, I guess you kind of look for blessings in disguise, really, don't you? Like, you're trying to sit there and go, well, and especially but it's hard because there's certain places in Australia at the moment that don't have the training that we do, that certain other states do. So it puts it in such a really hard thing. It'll be, if the games go ahead, it'll be so strange. There'll be athletes who have had all the time to train, and there'll be athletes who have had less time to train, and then some, look at us, like those guys, the poor people in Victoria at the moment are really going through it. So, but we can still go out and train here, and it's messy. It's messy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll soon see. To be continued.
Yes, I know, and I just think fingers crossed that. For me, especially, I'll just keep trying to do what I've got to do. I still go to training every day, and I'll still look for little goals, look for something. Doesn't have to be massive. You might just want to get, by the end of the week, just be able to hit this speed, or maybe do a time trial at the end of the week, and hopefully you might be able to do this time. And just breaking it down now from being a bigger goal to just a whole bunch of little goals that are achievable, so that you're not putting yourself into a bit of a hole where you're like, oh, I can't train like I want to, and I can't get these goals. And it's just, trying to find these little achievable ones, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's something that people on their weight loss journey, kind of struggle with, because they're like, oh my God, like it's so far away. Or even just anything, like if you're running a marathon, I don't know, whatever, swimming, long distance, like if you can break it down, I think then it becomes a little bit more, like you said, more rewarding, because you're like celebrating those little tiny micro goals that you have. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think micro goals can be really important, and really, they can be the difference between putting yourself into a little bit of a slump, like a training hole, and just finding those little extra bits. But yeah, like you said, it is like that, with weight loss and stuff like that. Because sometimes you don't see the results straight away. Sometimes it just takes a little bit before you start to notice it. And it can be like that with us. We might be doing speed blocks, and I'm not noticing any difference in my speed. I'm sitting there saying to Dawes, I'm going no faster. We're doing all this work and I'm going no faster. And then one week, all of a sudden, it all just comes together, and before you know it, you start to see those results. And I think that's, those are those little micro goals that you got to set.
Yeah, and trusting the process, knowing that all of this is going to help you.
Yeah, oh my God, Fiona, that's actually one of the biggest things. Trust the process, because that's the other thing, is it's okay to create yourself a process and break it all down and make a process, but you've got to trust it then, and you've got to trust that is going to work, and that's the other battle, mental battle as well, is doing all this, and then you can sit there and go, you could just throw it all away by going, that's not going to work. I need to go back to what so you just got to trust it. And the first time we finally got this full recipe together was for World Champs last year, the 100 meters, because as I said, I haven't been working with her for that long, and we didn't get a test event to do it, so we tried it all at World Championships last year, and as I said, there's tweaks we need to do to it, but for the most part, it went well.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But not a great place to try to start with. I would definitely recommend trying something like that at a smaller event first, if you can.
Yeah, well, or give it all and see what happens, and you can come back and you've got something that you've learned from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we always try and take things out of it. Like all the races are filmed, they're all gate checked and stuff like that. So we can always tell if you're slower over the first 20. Technology now is unbelievable. They can break it down to be that you were slower over the first meter, 5 meters, all these kind of things. It's just unbelievable. So, and the way, and your pushes, like your push was the slowest push out of the top 8. You don't want to hear that, but if that's the statistics that it's showing, we can see that and we can work on that then.
Yeah, that's cool. That's much easier than the old days and just going, all right, let's try this.
Yeah, and it's also, my coach is a bit old fashioned though, so he still sits up in the stands and he'll still sit there, and like he'll come back and we'll have all this technology, and he'll still sit there and sometimes try and outwit the technology a little bit. Like he'd be like, no, I don't think you were as slow as you thought over that first bit. And I'll sit there and say, Dawes, I can see it on the computer right here. It says that we were the slowest. Like your brain, like,
oh, that's so.
You're just getting it.
That's hilarious. So tell us about your tattoos. Like, obviously, people that are listening, you have tattoos on your arms, but what do they represent?
Well, I mean, I have tattoos all over my body. Originally I was trying to keep to a little bit of a theme where I was a bit like, I wanted to do everything with a bit of a meaning and a little bit of a, something to do with an event, a race, a place that I went. And then I got a little bit into it and started just doing just random things like this arm here is all just, it's just colors. Yeah. There's nothing to it. But I tried to do, on this arm here, I tried to do little bits and pieces to my, I've got my race numbers from Rio and London Paralympics, the numbers that I, was allocated, and I have things for like the Humpty Dumpty Foundation, which was the first race that I went to, the charity that supported that. And I've got some stuff on my back for Rio. And yeah, I've just tried to do little bits and pieces here and there, and also just little fun ones, like if I'm away and with a friend or something, and we just want to get something because we're away, something little like that. Yeah, it's so annoying though. I've been for the most part, like my stomach and my sides and my back and arms have all been done by the same guy, and I really wanted to have to finish off before the games came around. But I just saw today Queensland closed their border, so I won't be getting up there to get any more tattooing done. I know. It's so it's disappointing. Yeah. So if there's any tattooists out there that still working, shoot me a message because I wanted to do the tops of my shoulders and my chest and try and finish that off before
the games.
So yeah, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I enjoy the idea of being able to have that tattoo there as as a story, something that I can then carry with me, and hopefully there's still more to come. I got the mascot from Rio as well, but eventually, you do fill up a lot of spots, and eventually you got to try and find little random places to put things. Yeah. So. But yeah, I just enjoy it. It's something that, if I'm going to put money into something, I like the idea of that. And I also like the artwork of it. And Kenny Morrissey, the guy who's done the most of my body, he's just, I just have full trust in him. And because sometimes you can't see what he's tattooing, and he could be just drawing anything on me. So he's been great. And hopefully I'll be able to get back up there and see him again soon.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It shows your identity and what you're proud of in your life, which is exciting.
And I think for me, it started off with, I was going to do just kind of an arm, and then it ended up being that, I had these big piece ideas that I wanted to do, and it's just kind of gone into that. And I think, I've done a lot of, not done a lot, but I've done, there's been stories on them and that kind of stuff. So, it's always nice, like people do take an interest in it. There's people who obviously don't necessarily like them and don't like that sort of thing. But I like that there's some stories to mine that do mean a lot. I got things for my family, and I got things for, even just like, as I said, the Humpty Dumpty Foundation. And that was the first race that I was at. It was hosted by them, and they got us back every year, and even just those little ones that mean so much to me, even though they're small and just on your arm, they mean more than some of the other big ones that you have.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So tell us about what, like, future, obviously Tokyo, like, do you have anything else that you have in mind that you're aiming for? Obviously, you want gold.
Obviously, I want gold. Yeah. In Tokyo, I would love to win a gold medal.
For the 100 meters?
100 meters, yeah. 100 meters is my, the goal is gold. That would be just, I think for me, just top off, especially, if the games go ahead, being that it's been such a tough 5 years, I think to get that in next year would just be really quite amazing. But then there's other little bits and pieces that I really want to just work on. I've got some things going on outside of sport that I really enjoy doing. And I think that's the important thing, is being able to separate that, not just have your whole life around the sport, being able to break it up a bit. I think that makes my mental health feel better as well, when I've got other things outside that I can come home from training, and if it hasn't been a great session, I can go, well, that's okay, I've got other things that I've got to do. So forget about that, and we'll fix that up tomorrow. And but there's little goals that I'd like to do outside of sport. I want to study. I want to do I want to have a degree. So those kinds of things are important to me as well.
Well, it's exciting. A degree in what?
I don't know yet.
Oh,
I don't know yet.
yeah.
I don't know yet. I've been in school for so long. I always think, I talk about this because my girlfriend is, she studies, and she's always like saying to me that I need to study and all this kind of stuff. And I just don't know. And I keep saying to her, I haven't been out of school for that long, but I'm 23 now, and I've been out of school since I was 17. So it's like, I'm like, I need to get my act together.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's not for you. Who knows? You'll see whatever way that your life folds out. It's the synchrony. It's like those moments that you had.
That's true. And there's like things that, I do want to do more of, and I don't need a degree for them. So I try and just keep pressing some of those, and whatever happens from there. And but yeah, I definitely would like to study, just in the fact that I think, as we just said, it's not for everyone, but I think it's something that I would like to do eventually.
Yeah, cool. So
I don't know what that.
We'll soon see. Hey, I'm sure all of us will be looking forward to see what happens after Tokyo.
Yeah, now would have been the perfect time to study, I would say, with a year and a half or whatever it is of a gap. But, that's okay.
So tell us your advice for there's some people who, that are probably listening, and they're kind of stuck in a position where they have these goals that they want to achieve, but they're in a bit of a funk with what's happening with the world right now. What's some advice that you would give to people?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so hard because, as you said, the world is in a bit of a funk at the moment. It would just manage those small goals, I think, that we spoke about earlier. I know it's like pretty much just exactly what I said, but it's just finding happiness in something that you do in the day. I think that's really important, to just get yourself out of a little bit of a funk as well. Just find, whether, just set yourself a little goal and try and achieve that, because, I mean, it is really hard, and it is hard for me to say, because, obviously we're in such a tough situation. Usually you'd say, oh, okay, well, if you want to lose weight, just go out there and run, or do something, but it's so hard because, some people can't do that at the moment. So that's a tough one.
They have to do inside training, body weight workouts.
Yeah, that's training. I know. Go to Rebel Sport or something. I don't know. Go somewhere and buy a home gym. I think just, little goals for yourself that are achievable are really important. And just the thought that this won't be forever.
Cool.
I think.
Yeah. You never know. I think like what you said, being grateful for the opportunity that we're in, and instead of being sad about what's going on, looking at the positive, and how can I make this to the best of my ability to keep progressing forward to my goals. So I think, focus on the small goals is good.
Yeah. Also, because, I know that sometimes we always cry poor for time, and I think, we do have a lot of time now, and that's something that, you can use to your advantage. Even just, what we were saying about studying and stuff, I always said that I didn't have time to do it, which that was just a cop out. But now I've got all this time, and I think, that's one of those things where it's like we do, one blessing is that we do have a lot of time at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Depending on your job, if you're working for Amazon, you're probably full busy behind the computer.
Yeah, you are probably very busy. I know. I keep buying things, and then I'm like, wait, I don't know if that's going to make it or not. I think they're shut down. So I need to stop buying stuff. Yeah. But obviously if you're an essential worker, I think we, those people are amazing, and I think we have to be very thankful for the people that have done what they've been able to do in this tough time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for allowing your time for us on the podcast today and jumping on the Zoom call. It's been such a pleasure having you on and listening to your journey. And I'm sure everybody's probably got many more questions to ask you as well. But I really look forward to seeing what happens in Tokyo. So good luck from me and all the listeners. And then for anyone listening, I'm going to put Rheed's Instagram. It's Instagram, hey, that we're going to be following you on?
Yeah. I've used Instagram probably more than anything. So, jump on and, I'll try not to bore you.
Yeah, so we'll be able to follow your journey through there. Awesome.
Yeah. Nice. And thank you so much for having me on today as well. I really appreciate it. I know we've been trying to make it happen for a while now. So, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening in, guys. If you're on Apple, please leave a 5-star written review. If you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. All right, I'll see you next week with the next inspiring story.